The water was on fire. The jungle was on fire. I just remember this big wall of green and black that was the jungle foliage and the black smoke from the burning jet fuel. And that's all I remember. Oh, yeah. Well, I had a job as a cook.
This is Butch. This is Butch's estate he and a friend built. It consists of 3 structures: his house, an outdoor hangar, and a guest house, all connected to a grass airstrip. In the guest house sits a piano, a lap pool, a few guitars, a motorcycle.
Yeah, this is what I do. I don't really ride it. I just stand by it. Yeah. Somebody comes by and sees.
And a bunch of old Western trinkets. In the outdoor hangar sits a plane. Duh. In Butch's house sits a bar, a pool table, a big propeller, and a full wall bookshelf with everything ranging from books documenting the old American West to Star Wars expanded universe novels. But from all of the features of the house, the most notable is the airplane hangar attached to it. There you can find his drafting board, a vintage Coke machine, a collection of Old West movie trinkets and posters, flight memorabilia, a coat rack full of flight caps, a hanging model plane, and an actual 1941 Fleet Finch yellow biplane. He's had it for 12 years and has flown it all across the country. Butch and my dad met in college, and both being from Eastern North Carolina and all-around aeronautic geeks, they kicked it off, and Butch has been a sort of unofficial family member since. This is Chris, and that's me. Chris and I have been making videos since we were 10, some good and some bad.
50. You put on the phone. 50.
Going into our senior year of high school, we wanted to tell Butch's story, so we packed up our gear and drove 6 hours to Butch's estate. This is Butch.
The guy who owned this farm, he and my dad were crop dusting partners. My dad did that on his days off when he was a state trooper, which is why I own this land, because my parents had bought it. They wanted to live here. My dad always wanted to live on a grass strip, you know, again, who wouldn't? And I wanted to be able to sit at my bar or sit in my living room and look through the door, the windows, and see my airplane, which is why I designed this place like I did. I've always, since I was in college at NC State, I've wanted an open cockpit biplane just to go kind of barnstorming across the U.S., which I've done on several big trips, 2 or 3 big trips actually. One with my wife all the way out west and back. So my wife and I met in the fall of '93. We met at a sailboat regatta down in Oriental, North Carolina. Started dating, and 7 months later we were married. And soon after that is when we went out to Santa Fe. She was a school nurse for this school of about 80 kids up outside of Santa Fe, up in the mountains. So during that time was when I was doing a lot of odd jobs. One was I worked as a cook for the school, for the chow hall there. And then that same winter, I left that job and was an extra in this Lawrence Kasdan movie, big epic western called Wyatt Earp.
No riding into the stores, saloons, the dance halls, the gambling houses. No public intoxication.
Man, what's that supposed to mean, public?
When I was a kid, I'd be like, how can I be in that movie, in that universe, is the way we say it nowadays, you know? And I'd be like, well, I know how I can do it. I can become an actor, be in a movie, go watch the movie in the theater, sit in the theater chair, and there I'll be. Oh, I love movies. When I was a kid, I loved movies. You know, it was the only thing my parents would let me stay up late for was to watch an old movie. And that was a $100 million budget movie in '93, which is huge. And it was just awesome. And it was in the, you know, beautiful Santa Fe, New Mexico, down on that Cook Ranch, you know. It's like, oh my God, I was in heaven. I had to decide, was I gonna go back to the flying and make, you know, definitely make good money right away, or was I gonna, you know, claw my way to the top of yet a new industry, you know, and I always went back to the flying because it was just, the money was too tempting, you know, and it sucks being broke, so. I left school, NC State, in my junior year to fly out west fighting fires, and that was my first real flying job. They were consolidated PB-4Y-2. It was a World War II bomber. Yeah, so it was like, gosh, it was, even then it was more than 40 years old. So, but they had been converted in the early 60s for firefighting. We were everywhere. We were in Rapid City, South Dakota, got dispatched back to Alaska again, and then finished out the summer there. With aviation, it's a small community and one thing leads to another, and Usually it's word of mouth how you find out about a job and get hired. But before I was done with that firefighting in the 80s, I had run into some old Air America guys up there. And Air America was sort of a front for one of the U.S. government agencies that was working in Vietnam and Laos.
Our customers, principally the United States government, call upon us to do a unique variety of things, to fly people and cargo, to maintain and repair, to perform a broad spectrum of other services.
I ran into these guys and I told them what I wanted. I was looking for some government contract work. They were out of that, but they knew some guys that were still in it from the old days. And that's how my overseas government contracting work began. I was engaged to be married after about 3 years of that work, and I decided I didn't want to travel that much. My wife and I moved back to North Carolina. She had decided she wanted to be an attorney. And then I started doing odd jobs again. What I was finding was it was very difficult to find a good paying flying job in the U.S. Long story short, I could make more driving a truck than I could working as a pilot. And I always wanted to drive a big tractor trailer. So I went to a 6-week truck driving school and got a job the next day driving a gasoline tanker. And then I got a job working for your granddad, hauling cement pipe on a flatbed truck for 6 months.
Hello?
Hey, is this Papa?
I'm afraid it is.
Hey, Papa, it's Sam. Where did y'all go?
San Diego.
What was your first impression of him?
That he was a very likable guy,
Yeah.
and always has been.
Well, he must have been likable if you went to San Diego with him.
Yeah, that's right.
So these a lot of these guys are dead now. This is Stevie Wass. He was an old friend of mine. He was my first captain fighting fires back in the 80s, and he died in this very airplane. Mark Schladon died of cancer, but he sprayed coca with us in Colombia. Boomer, great guy from down in Mississippi, one of the spray pilots in Colombia. He was shot and killed by ground fire. Just a lucky bullet made its way through the armor on the airplane and killed him.
And where was that?
In Colombia. Well, I got a job flying a single-engine firebomber for the state of North Carolina. And while I was at that, I heard about this program the U.S. State Department had in Colombia, South America, where they're basically eradicating the illegal coca fields down there. Now, coca is the plant, the green leafy plant from which cocaine is made. So I got hired on down there. There are inherent hazards to low-level flying, obviously. But in addition to that, we had to worry about ground fire from the FARC. These homemade mortars they made, they were like air-launched IEDs is what they were. These guys are guerrilla fighters. They work in small mobile groups, mainly in the jungle. Well, I had a crash, and of course, to this day, we don't really know what happened. First of all, I don't remember all of it. I still don't to this day. But I can tell you what my gunship that was directly above me, a couple of 100 feet, what he saw. I'm spraying coca up in the mountain. I spray the field. I hop over a ridge looking for more coca within my area, and I'm up in this bowl in some really tall mountains. I called him, said, "Hey, I got a problem," and I started dumping my load. Well, I called him a second time, and I said, "Hey, the problem just got worse." I have no idea what that meant. I wasn't giving out much details. So I was kind of busy. Well, then I called him a third time. I said, "Keep an eye on me, it doesn't look good." The plane hits the side of the mountain, the fuel explodes in the wings, the plane slides back down in the river, catches the jungle on fire as it slides down, ends up in the half submerged in the river. The only thing I do remember was swimming through the water. The water was on fire, the jungle was on fire. I just remember this big wall of green and black that was the jungle foliage and the black smoke from the burning jet fuel. And that's all I remember. So our Starbird shows up, and Dave and Kirk, the two SAR guys, they go to ground, go straight to the plane. But I'm not in the plane, right? Because they know I'm in there dead. I mean, it looked bad. It looked really bad. They start looking for me. Long story short, they see me about 300 or 400 feet up the hill. I'm standing there with all my gear on, survival vest, gun, everything. I got my survival radio in my hand. It's all busted, hanging. I'm going, "Hey!" I'm a little out of it, I was fine. I had, I was soaked in jet fuel, and my skin peeled over the next month from my neck down to my toes. Other than that, I had a black eye. That was it. One of the reasons I left the Columbia and came to the Blackwater job, fortunately for me, they needed basically a stay home every night corporate pilot. Now, our entire marriage, which was almost 16 years, she was diagnosed with MS. And unfortunately for her, it was chronic progressive, and she got worse and worse. Her health really deteriorated the last 2 years of her life from 06 to 08, and she died in 08. And we had just started this place. So I had a job for about a year and a half ferrying these new crop duster airplanes overseas. Took one to Spain, took one to China. 2 really fun trips. I'd never crossed the Atlantic before solo. And then I decided I was, in an effort to quit traveling overseas altogether as a contractor, I went back to aerial firefighting. I'm back in the U.S., back out west working, and only working 3 or 4 months out of the year, and living here when I'm not working.